This week on Industry Relations, Rob and I discuss home services settlement, who's left, and why won't anybody come on our show. Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective, with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your host, the notorious Rob, and as always, my co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson. Woo! All right.
I got a new studio set up here. I'm in a standing position.
Oh,
my hair is like terrible.
I don't know, but you got like the Clark Kent hair going on, so it's all good.
Yeah, something.
It's all good. Yeah.
And then, so I was going to do some experimenting here in my new little podcast setup. So we'll see what happens. Okay.
All right. And maybe on video, they could make sure it's just you are showing up. But, and I know, in the pre-show, we just talked a little bit. We're going to start with kind of the breaking news of the day.
Which
is that the final one has fallen.
The final one has fallen. Exactly.
Has thrown in the towel. They have settled for $250 million,
which is crazy when you think about it, right? I mean, what was Compass? I mean, had kind of similar volume, though, right? I mean,
they're Anywhere, which I think is the closest sort of analog.
Yeah,
paid $83 million.
Right. Wow. Well, Buffett's got the money, I guess.
I was tweeting this morning, like, yeah, I mean, the top line number is big, but it's like, I want to say it's just over 0.5% of what they're facing, right? Because they're looking at 4.7 billion or something. So it's,
Well, so would you call it that they waited too long then?
I wouldn't necessarily say that because look, I mean, they might have won at some, but who wants to take that risk? 4.7 billion. And yeah, it's 250, which is a lot, right? But it's over 4 years. Right. So it's like 60 million a year. Like, okay, it's a lot of money, but it's home services. You know what I mean? Like they can afford that.
All right. Well, will you indulge me on,
of course,
using
now the floor is yours. I
the
can't
murder
wait to
board
see.
here. So
yes,
we have home services is now on the board here, right? Okay. That also means that, and we also know that, of course, I think it was, Anywhere that was also here. Right.
By the way, if you are only listening to us on audio, this will be one good reason why you want to come to our YouTube channel, subscribe, so that you can view Greg's amazing murder board. I'm just putting that out.
And the Remax, of course,
was
on there. Who else do we have? We had Keller Williams, right? Keller Williams was also on there. So let's put them on the murder board here, right? And then, we talked about Compass. Got to put Compass up there.
Yep.
Compass is on there. And then Real, right? And EXP. Yep. Okay. Yep. Well, no, they're going on the board too, Rob. Let's put them up.
Wait, has EXP settled already? I don't remember reading that.
I thought they did.
Did they? I don't remember. Hold on.
That's kind of clever with the Real logo. It's upside down. Yeah. It's still even underwater.
I don't think EXP has settled yet.
Okay. Well, let me take them off the murder board then. Am I missing anybody?
NAR?
Oh. Well, it just so happens I have an NAR sticker here.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, and I'm not sure if NAR is all in this, I think this is the ones that I have so far.
I think we got to put EXP on the other side because I don't think they've settled yet.
Okay. Well, we're going to put them on the other side then. All right. But what I have heard is that when you add up everything right now, it's $876 million. Everybody, we're almost approaching $1 billion. We're almost approaching $1 billion here. And this makes this man. Did Redfin settle?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, well,
I haven't seen that.
So let's put them up here also. But that means Mr. Michael Ketchmark is a very happy man, so we'll just put him right underneath the 87 billion. I also, just so we know, as I count them right now, Rob, and I'm gonna put this over here by the Industry Relations logo, is that you owe me, or I've won 2 steak dinners so far. Okay, so I'm gonna put
based on what? I can't remember the bet.
Well, we already did a bet. I already got paid off on one of the bets, right? And then I think the other one was, I owe you a stake.
Yeah. I can't remember for it either.
Just put that stake on there. We'll put some labels right. So there you are, the introduction of the industry relations murder board here. And I've even got the pointer. Board. So if we could that's a stake. That's a stake.
We're gonna have to get you a lav mic. So when you're turning over, to do that, we can still get your audio, right? Or you're gonna need a handheld or something. Okay. So I guess the question is, what's missing from the murder board?
I mean, it's amazing that companies like, Zillow and Realtor.
But they're not. Nah,
well, yeah, but not. I mean, they're part of this community. They're part of. I know,
but they're not going to be
benefit from everybody.
Sure, but they're not going to be paying it. But here's what I've got missing so far. Then on your murder board, so you're going to have to print out a whole bunch more logos, right?
Uh-oh.
The $2 billion club is missing. At Properties, They just settled. We don't know what the terms are.
Oh, okay, so I'll have to add them.
At Properties, who else settled just now? I can't. Oh, at Properties and at Properties settlement. This is at Properties, Christie's. Yeah, is that it? At Properties and Christie's International, I guess. All right. Okay. Douglas Elliman has not settled. Fathom has not settled. William Ravis has not settled.
This is the $2 billion club, right?
Yeah, I'm just reading through the top 10 list, right?
What do we think that number's? What do we think the number's going to get to? What do we think? Is that going to? I remember Ed Zorn saying this was all probably worth around $2 billion. $2
billion, yeah. So here's the thing. Like, according to the NAR settlement, it would be the $2 billion club would be $2.24 billion. However, we know that Compass, for example, paid a fraction of what they would have, right? So we have to assume similar things going to take place. So I don't know, maybe $750 million, 500 million, maybe out of the 2 billion club, something like that.
Right. Okay. So,
so that brings that number up to 1.3-ish billion.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's what's missing from the murder board. Okay. You're missing Pulte.
But they weren't actually sued, though, right?
They haven't sued, but they're going to. I think I have a steak dinner bet going with, right? So I think that's going to be.
So there's another class that after they get through with this, they're going to go to builders and shit like that. That's what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, I think Pulte is going to opt out, right?
Right. That's right.
And Pulte and the other big builders are going to opt out because they have lawyers on retainer anyway. So it's not like they have to go through some long thing.
Yeah, we talked about that. Right.
Yeah, they can afford it. So I think maybe those guys will take another $1 billion, maybe, out of the industry.
Wow.
I mean,
Jesus.
What do you think?
Good. Well, they're not. I mean, typically, so, either they're selling it directly to consumers, right? So not all their business is related to realtors. Right?
No, a lot of them list. So what they're saying is we list our homes in the MLS. So we're forced to offer this.
Does Pulte so Pulte is, well, I guess everybody was forced in a sense, but
they're claiming. Now, look, like we could get at some point. We probably want to bring someone from Newcon to talk about, because like a lot of them have in-house agents.
Maybe we'll have Kevin back. I mean, Kevin might know a lot of this stuff.
Talk about it. I'm just saying, but the way I look at it is like, okay, if your home service is anywhere, Remax, KW, and NAR, you just settled, right? You're trying to put this behind you. Do you really want to be involved in a 5-year lawsuit against Pulte and DR Horton and these companies that are many, many times larger than you, like many, many times larger, right? Or do you just go, listen, how much do you want? Fine, you're going to opt out. Like, what do you want? They go, we want $1,000 per whatever, and like. Right. Because right now they're going to make about $10.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Divide 876 million by 25 million. What does that come to?
876 million.
Let's do that real quick. Hold
so
on.
900.
Check it out. Calculator. Okay.
908.
You know what? In fact, let's just say that it's going to be 1.5 billion. Okay.
Okay.
So 1,500 divided by 25 is $60. So each homeowner would get $60. But really, the lawyers will have taken a third. So each homeowner is going to get about $40. I mean,
yeah, big deal. I mean, this is all again, the big winner. These guys, right? Attorneys.
Yeah, and I don't, that's the thing that I'm now curious about, to be honest with you. Because you have 20 different copycat lawsuits. And
yeah, didn't they just like merge a couple of these cases together?
They failed to merge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The MDL said, nah, because what they said is you already have these big, humongous settlements. Like, why do we need to take this on, right? But thing is, if you have this big settlement, you can opt out, right? So if you're one of these other law firms, your choice now is, do I participate in this pool, right? And let's just say it's going to be a third, right? So a third of 1.5 billion, so $500 million pool, right? Now the lawyers are going to fight amongst themselves about who gets how much of that 500 million. Ketchmark is going to claim the lion's share. He did all the heavy lifting. He won the Sitzer lawsuit. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
But then you're going to have the first guys, the Higgins Berman and the Cohen Milstein guys. Like, well, we developed all of this, right? So they're going to take a big chunk. So if you're some copycat lawyer, you've come in, are you going to be happy with whatever you're going to get there? Or are you going to take your clients and say South Carolina and go, we're going to opt out. We're going to, we think we could win in trial, right? And try and get a better deal than $40.
I don't know. I think with these attorneys, it's a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, man.
Granted, but so it kind of depends. How much money do they stand to make if they join versus if they say, nah, we're going to opt out. We're going to do our own thing. That I think is going to be the next big, like, holy shit. Like, no one's talked about this. Everyone is like, we have the settlement. It's over. I'm like, nah, not necessarily. Like, they have to opt in. If they opt out, like Pulte did, or will, then not so much, right? So that's the next shoe to drop, It ain't over. But having said that, you have the DOJ and the FTC logos printed out for a reason. So tell us about that, Greg, on your murder board.
Well, I mean, to me, the Department of Justice, I mean, they're on a tear right now everywhere, right? They just rescinded employment agreements or non-compete agreements. FTC did. Yeah. And that's that could be a big deal in this business. I mean, it's always been the case here in California. Now I know, a lot of people, somebody was asking me on Twitter, and I'll ask you this, because we see a lot of, sometimes you say the X brokerage files a lawsuit against this other brokerage for poaching or whatever.
Right.
Because agents aren't strictly employees, right? So they're kind of a 1099. So I guess it depends on the agreement they signed to move over. Maybe they got some cash or whatever, because it's more to me like they're buying a book of business or I don't know. So I don't know how these employment agreements would actually factor, right?
I don't know how it would impact things either. Someone did send me some emails about the FTC thing. So you should talk about it. It's like, I haven't had time to read the ruling, and I'm not sure how they apply to 1099s, right? Now, they probably do apply to brokerage managers. Like, that's really where the managing brokers, but, I don't know if non-competes are really the way you handle that, or it might be a non-solicitation,
Maybe.
Because, and I do get the FTC's point on this, right? Because I've signed non-competes, I'm dealing with people who've signed non-competes, and I do think that it doesn't apply to like senior execs, right? So, so if you're like CEO, right, then you leave.
No, I don't know about that. I mean, didn't Keller Williams just had a big spat with that of like, CEOs moving over, right?
Right.
I mean,
right. But what I'm saying is I think the FTC ruling exempts senior execs.
Okay.
Right? That's what I heard.
Oh, I see. Oh, so that you can have
it.
them. You can have.
You can
Okay.
have non-competes
All right.
for
now I
senior
get you,
execs.
And also on acquisitions also, because that's like my non-compete is tied into our purchase agreement. So
yeah. And that, again, I don't know. I haven't read the ruling. I have no idea. But I think what it's trying to say is it's supposed to cover like your junior level employees, right? Somebody's like a manager of marketing manager. You can't put a non-compete where they can't get a job, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So
yeah, and I saw somebody on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere saying, "Oh, this is a bad thing for SBAs because now Google can gobble up your." I mean, why you want to hold down somebody who's trying to better themselves, right? I mean, they don't. I mean, if you don't want them to leave, either create an environment they want to stay and maybe not make so much, or pay them what the market is. I mean, it's kind of like, to me, yeah, I don't get that mentality.
Well, the thing is, like, I get the non-compete. So again, we're speculating because I haven't read the ruling. I don't know what the regs are, and it is being sued, right? Like, immediately there's a lawsuit challenging it. But I think the general idea does kind of make sense. Like, look, I run a company. You've run companies. You run one now. Like, there are certain things that you would do. Especially if they're a senior employee, they know all kinds of shit. They like. It's you want to protect yourself against that. And I think what I've read is the way to handle that is not through non-competes. The way to handle that is through things like non-solicitation and confidentiality, trade secret agreements, right? So, I have a startup. Let's say one of my coders who knows all kinds of shit, right, decides, hey, I'm going to go take a job with this other company, right? Like, I shouldn't be like, you can't take a job, right? I should be like, okay, you take that job, but you can't solicit anybody, from here. You can't solicit any of our customers, and you can't, if we have some trade secrets, then you can't disclose that, right? That's probably the fairer, and I think that's kind of the way California does it anyway. Like, there are no non-competes in California enforceable, I don't think.
Right. No,
but what they do say is trade secrets, you can't take your former employer's like client list with you and then go to the new company and start calling all those clients. Like, that's unfair.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think there's there was something recently in the news. If you remember, Apple for a second there had to recall a lot of their new watches because this blood monitoring thing or something like that.
Right.
And it turned out that they had tried to license it from a company. I think might have been an Israeli company. I could be wrong, but anyway, and they didn't get an agreement. So what did they do? They hired everybody from that company, and they released it anyway, and then they got shut down. Right. So, if Apple's having problems, there's some teeth to that, some of that stuff there too.
Yeah. So, but anyway, back to the DOJ FTC. Yeah, they're in a tear, and we've already had a number of shows on this, and I don't think we're going to see anything out of the DOJ in this through the end of the year. So we'll see. I feel like we're getting to the end of the drama, thank God, because it'd be nice to talk about something other than commission lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean, I guess who is notable in the 2 billion club that has signed?
That has signed Compass. At properties.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the local, the mega brokers, not necessarily the ones that are really national.
Oh, Real, I guess they're national. At properties, right? That's a mega broker.
Okay, so at properties, and they just did that recently, right?
They just did that, yeah.
Okay, so would you say, because, I mean, I think they're in a different class. They're in this class that you talk about where, NAR pardoned everybody, in the settlement for 2 billion and under, or 1.9999, whatever.
Right.
But the $2 billion, but people over 2 billion did not.
Right.
And as you rightly pointed out, I mean, that could make a lot of people pissed off, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when somebody down their street didn't get that. Would you say that in the scenario you were talking about that, those people down the street might have been were national brokers, or are there $2 billion club brokers in the same market at the same time?
What do you mean?
Okay, so there's there's like, let's just put App Properties. App Properties is not a national brand.
That's right.
Although they did do something with Christie's, didn't they?
Yeah,
but anyway.
yeah. So they bought Christie's to kind of have more of a national presence, but like I don't think there's an App Properties Florida, right? I don't think.
So, so I'm going to classify the $2 billion club that is local or regional.
Okay.
Regional is better.
Okay.
Are most of the 94 $2 billion clubs regional brokerages, or are any of them national? I would say probably maybe regional, right?
Most of them are regional, right? So I'm looking at, for example, William Ravis.
Okay.
They're number 10, I guess, on the 2 billion club, right? I mean, they're super regional, right? They're all in New England, and I think they're presence in Florida, like kind of East Coast. But there's no William Ravis in California, right?
Right.
There's no William Ravis in Nevada, I don't think. Realty Austin is another example, right? They're pretty dominant in Austin, but given their name, I don't think there's a Realty Austin Chattanooga.
Okay, so
right?
so let me pull on this thread for you. So you're saying that a lot of these $2 billion club people are pissed off because one of my competitors who was at 1.9 does not have to pay. I have to pay.
Right.
Are those competitors? Do you have these kind of super, these $2 billion regional brokerages in the same markets, or is this line that divides them as like you gave the big boys, the national franchises the national brokerages a cut or a deal, but you screwed the regional brokerages? I mean,
so I don't know.
I mean, frame it that way. So
let's actually talk about App Properties, right? Because that's useful. So App Properties paid something. We don't know. It's not been disclosed. Okay. Another major Chicagoland area is Baird and Warner, right? They're going to have to settle and pay something, right? I think. I don't think Baird and Warner is owned by HomeServices. But there are two other companies, and it's Compass now to pay something, right?
Well, Compass is national, though.
But hear me out. They've all had to pay something, okay? There's going to be in fact, as far as I know, there's a very large Coldwell Banker in Chicagoland area.
It's not NRT or whatever they call it now? Yeah.
It might be, but my point is like, okay, so maybe that's not the right example. Let's say there's a big RE/MAX franchise. They're covered under the RE/MAX corporate settlement. Right? Well, fine. Let's take Phoenix, okay? Let's take Phoenix. So in Phoenix...
So no, that's even more interesting, because now you're saying it's now the line here is really between national franchisors, right?
The line is between covered and uncovered, right?
Right, but I mean, it's like, but again, I'm trying to frame it in the sense of like, from what you talked about, where there's a delineation, right? It seems like if I'm a regional broker, for you're the way you originally framed it was on the money.
Right.
Okay. Just they're 1.9. I'm 2. I have to pay. They don't. I'm pissed off.
Right. Right.
But isn't it really, or can you also add on to that? You're giving the national brokerages a break and not me, the regional brokers. Right.
There's the national franchises. Right.
Well, I'm national brokerages.
Right. I guess that's another way to think about it. I'm just saying, like, it's an awful place to put somebody. If you're a big independent, say William Ravis, right? They're very big in New England. Okay. All right. They're going to have to do some sort of settlement. They're going to have to write a check. All the RE/MAXs, all the KWs, and all of the Anywhere brands in my market, and all three are very big in that New England, New Jersey, like that market. None of them are paying a thing. Right. So okay, fine. We settle 2024. We move on. Come 2025, I'm looking at what money I have to spend on recruiting and retention, and my competitors who are with these big national franchises, or they're under 2 billion, right? They're like, we have all this money. Let's go do parties. Let's go do signing bonus. Let's go do all these things, recruiting attention.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is
position.
It is. But what I'm saying is, like, there is another kind of way of looking at it.
Okay,
forget the money.
Okay, what are you trying to get at?
That local brokerages, regional brokers got screwed. Forget the money, because most of the stuff either was they were settled by their corporate parent, right, or Well, I guess that's the thing. They were settled by their corporate parent. So NAR, what did they really give up by saying, okay, 2 billion and up? I mean, to me, it's almost like all of, there's a lot that were covered already, right? So was there really that much to give? And I'm thinking this on the sense of for you to say, what and sort of like what could have been another outcome, right? What if you fashioned it, because you're rightfully saying 1.9 versus 2, that's a very weird thing, but could they have like named regional brokers? And these are people that you again talked about. These are the people that have given their life, blood, and soul, right? These are not corporations. I mean, they might set up whatever, but
sure,
there is, Baird and Moore, Steve Baird, right? There's Thad and those and at properties and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, these are people that have been involved in the industry and making the industry. I mean, maybe you could have carved out these regional brokerages, not just so you have the 2 billion club, and they're like, okay, these are the regional brokers that we kind of identify that might be whatever, right? I guess you're not leaving a lot on the bone there, but still.
But if you do that, I'm looking down the list of the 2 billion club, like, okay, so other than the top 10, right, who are technically like national, like a Compass or, right? But here's on that basis though, what exactly is justification for treating Compass differently than Baird and Warner, right? Robert Refkin's, he's poured blood and sweat and tears into Compass as well, right?
Well, he's poured a lot of money, or burned a lot of money.
We can't say the man did no work. Like he put in work, right? Or EXP, right? I mean, we know Glenn. Like we know when Glenn was like hustling this shit, 10 years ago. Like you can't say that he didn't pour heart, blood, and soul into this thing either. So I don't know how you then say we're going to by name. These are whatever institutionally important, historically important institution. We're going to carve them out. But EXP and Compass, like you can go after them. Like I'm not sure how you can do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as a membership organization, I just don't know how you can do that.
Is there a difference? Like, could there have been something between public and private? Maybe, right? I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. But then, so you look at the 2 billion club. Okay, the public companies are Compass, EXP. I think Douglas Elliman is owned by a public company, Redfin. And then we're at Fathom Holdings. That's it. Oh, Real. I think that's it. Right? So, fine. So you throw the public companies on the bus. Those 6 are public. We're not covering them. Everybody else we're going to cover. Yeah, that would have worked. Right? And they would have had to pay a lot more than $418 million, but that would have worked.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, ever since that, and it's like in my head, it's like, how we always talk about it. Don't just bring me the problem.
Bring me the solution.
Help me with a solution too, right? Because it is I do sympathize. But the fact that at what I was also getting to is like the fact that App Properties is settled, and this is really the start of this, I think, is that the first domino to fall in the 94, up 2 billion club.
I mean, I imagine
I was waiting for one of those to say uncle. It seems like one says uncle. So, yeah.
No, I assume they're all going to settle, right? Like I said, I think they would be better. Like, man, that's a lot of negotiations. You know what I mean? Yeah. 94 separate like hearings and negotiations, but they'll get to it. Maybe it'll just be like, look, here's a formula. Just to comply with this, and we'll let you. Here's the thing, like, okay, I know, I understand this is going to sound whatever, because, I apparently have some history with Anthony LaMacchia, right? But this is really not about him. It really isn't. But I bring this up because this was in the news, right? It was remarkable. I don't know if you saw the news that LaMacchia Realty, so Anthony's company, bought Kevin Sears' company, right? Good for them. They've probably been friends for a long time. That's a great business move. Here's what I'll point out. LaMacchia Realty, on my list, is number 87. They did $1.74 billion.
Oh, man.
So they were covered. Okay. I don't think anybody in the 2 billion club is doing any acquisitions right now. How could you? You don't know what you're going to pay out in a settlement, right? So I'm saying that's like a real world example of like, hey, we're under 2 billion. Guess what? We can now spend our cash doing things like acquisitions. If you're in the 2 billion club,
you've made that point before. Yeah, I mean it's a terrible situation for sure.
So the solution would have been everybody pays or nobody pays, right? So
yeah, so
again,
that's solution you would bring. Yeah,
it's water under the bridge. Yeah. I know we're gonna revisit it because I'm like, here's a real life example, right? And it's gonna be the same thing. I think what we're gonna see. So let's say Q4 of this year into next year, right? Is a lot of these super regionals that have paid out are going to find themselves in a difficult competitive position, right? Vis-a-vis local competitors of national brands, right? And again, like I could think of cities, right? Like Phoenix, there's a major Sotheby's in Phoenix, major. They're covered.
The thing is that the problem is like at the worst time ever to pay all this money, right?
Right.
I mean, like you would say, okay, they just had some boom years, in the post-pandemic there for a little bit. They should have saved it for a rainy day, but nobody does that. Come on, man.
Right.
Okay, let me bring another topic up if I can. All right. So in Scottsdale, apparently there was 2 conferences going on. Unfortunately, just too busy. I couldn't go to either, which is a bummer.
I wasn't invited to either, so I didn't go.
Well, and I guess if you can count, the week before was Rizzo, so I'm like out of it here.
3 of them.
Yeah. So, but in Scottsdale it was 2, and I heard people were shuttling back and forth. There was Housing Wire's The Gathering, which formerly was Gathering of Eagles, and then of course there was T3's Summit, which I haven't missed in forever, but here's the one that I heard of, and I think it was T3 because this also, I think there was a Matterport announcement that they made also, but it seems that we've got some controversy, and this is I've heard secondhand between back and forth, and that's between our friends at CoStar and Realtor.com, right?
Yeah.
And while as we talked about last time, these guys have a bromance. No, wait. These guys have a bromance. That it was really kind of a problem. And what it is, it's kind of a war in numbers, right? Realtor.com is very pissed off that CoStar or Homes.com, has been saying, hey, we've surpassed you even by, a huge number, right? So we've got like the Realtor.com and we've got the Homes.com kind of face off, the cage match going on of like, what are they counting? And I think what I'm hearing is that Damien from Homes.com or from Realtor is saying, you're the metrics you're using are not, I mean, you're adding on all these other sites to say that this is that, right? So
I've heard that.
I think we haven't heard the last of this, but I mean, you go to Inman right now, and that's all that Homes.com is talking about is like how they beat, their number 2 site now, whatever else.
Right.
When I see, so I don't know if anybody's ever kind of like, settled on what the metric we're going to use for like visits, and is it your whole group of sites or whatever else? But it kind of reminds me of the whole, like, Donald Trump, this is the biggest inauguration ever, right? And we'll have to see what's fake news and what's not fake news. But I think we're going to be more hearing from these guys. That Damien guy over at Realtor, I don't think he likes to take any shit, man. So we'll see what happens.
I've heard good things about him. Like, I've talked to a couple friends who went
the
to those
op-ed,
events.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty transparent, right?
Yeah.
But still,
And they were very impressed with Damian Eales, right? So, like, all right, I hear he's an Aussie. And what I heard of the story you just told is that he did this total takedown of CoStar, the numbers, the whole thing. But did it in that real friendly, like, Aussie way. So it didn't come off if I did it. So good that's awesome. That's good for them.
Well, there was like some moment somebody told me where like, and Andy Florence was going and just spouting up numbers. Well, I already know that there's 10 million homes sold a year and this and that, that. And like people are like, 10 million homes sold a year. Where'd you get that number? Right. So, yeah. So there's a little bit of gameplay here for
let's
sure.
do what we do best, which is speculate.
Okay.
And read between the lines and, too much detail that nobody outside the industry gives a shit about. But, okay. Does this signify a break between sort of the Fox, the Murdoch organization and CoStar? Because there was a point a couple years back when CoStar looked like they really liked the real estate.au model, right? And there was some speculation that they would kind of do homes kind of as a joint venture almost, right? And this was when we talked about, CoStar should just buy realtor.com, right? Just buy the market share and then really compete with Zillow because that's your true competitor. And then we know what we've heard is that they looked at it and passed on it. Like realtor.com is too expensive, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay, so does this signify a break, right? That's one. The second thing, does this signify some sort of an escalation between CoStar and NAR? Because it's not that NAR controls realtor.com. Obviously, they don't, right? Obviously, News Corp controls realtor.com. But they do have that agreement, right? And I think Damian Neal specifically talked about how that agreement ties his hands.
Yeah.
I saw that reported.
Yeah.
And that he's working on sort of loosen that up, right? Okay, loosen that up against whom? In the past, it would have been loosen that up against Zillow, right? Is it now like you need to remove these bonds so I can go against homes?
Well, I think if I'm Damien, like the enemy of you is a friend of mine, right? I mean,
right.
So if I can put out Zillow as being an enemy, and I now can put up CoStar as being an enemy to help, help me help you release the bonds, right? I mean, sure, he's going to use everything possible to do that, right? I mean, so I wouldn't falter him at that. I mean, and these, op-ed pieces in Wall Street Journal, as transparent as they are about what, protecting a business model, it's still after the stories that have been showing up in the journal, I'm sure NAR is like, they'll take every kind of thing they can get as far as changing the narrative there, right? So we'll have to see that, right?
Right. I don't know. I mean, it's just like, if you kind of read the tea leaves a little bit, it seems to me this is setting up for a very interesting dynamic. Because I used to think it was like Homes, NAR, Realtor against Zillow. Not so much. Now it seems like a three-way, more unstable fight.
Yeah, and he is. I mean, there's a lot of chest pumping here that CoStar is doing about those numbers, and if they're right, I mean, they're spending so much cash. I mean, one second, I got something for you.
Yeah, this is great podcasting right now.
So I got this in the mail the other day. This is close to the Super Bowl, but it's a mailer.
Wow.
Okay. And I mean, this thing is.
Once again, if you're audio only, this is why you need to come to our YouTube channel.
But I mean, this thing is like, I mean, it's in a plastic thing. It was sent in the mail.
Okay.
100 million they're spending on. It's just the amount of money. I mean, look at this damn thing.
Wow.
It's got the QR code.
Wow.
I mean, how many? I mean, they're spending a lot of money, right? So
yes, they are.
What? And they are. They've been reporting better numbers and everything, but
right.
Well, it even goes bigger than that. Look at this. Jesus Christ.
That's right.
I don't know, but I mean, if I don't know how transparent they're going to be of what those numbers are, but let's say that, and I got to believe this turns into something. All the advertising got to turn into something. So I'm not sure if I totally believe what Realtor.com is saying is they're overly inflated, but are they adding other things? I think that's the way Zillow used to say, right? They had the Street Easy number. They had the
supposedly, again, I wasn't there. This is all secondhand, right? Supposedly, my friend who heard Damien said that CoStar's numbers include a lot of sites that have nothing to do with the U.S. Like apparently they include like some international numbers, right? Like from Italy, they include apartments.com.
Well, does that mean that they can include our realestate.au on
right? So
the realtor numbers? Yeah.
I think supposedly what Damien said on say again, this is all secondhand hearsay, was, hey, if I just included Wall Street Journal and like the London Times, like I could say I have 500 million,
Right, yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to watch. Again, it's just a little saber rattling there. And I mean, it's nice to, what I do like to see is somebody giving a shit, somebody fucking, putting them out there, right? They're not just going to take it, right? So that's I like that aggressiveness for sure.
So the big question in my mind is, where's Redfin? How's that we have not been talking about Redfin like as a portal for a couple of years?
Yeah, I think to me, I get the impression that Redfin's a little bit butthurt because I think they see themselves as like this commission stuff that's happened is like something they've been championing for a long time. Yeah. And then they've been thrown under the bus or under the same blanket as all the other people that they say
for sure.
have not been, part of the what they want to be is the big solution here to commission. So I think maybe that's why they haven't settled yet. Maybe that's because that they're making the argument, dude, you're going after the wrong horse here. Right. We're have you taken a look at our business model? I mean, it's ridiculous. Hello. Yeah. So maybe that's what they're kind of trying to do there. But I mean, they are part of the MLS, right? So, we'll have to see. Not part of NAR
offer and accept compensation. Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, I feel for them because they're probably like, finally, like this is exactly the world we wanted. But wait, you want us to pay how much? Like what? Yeah. And now they have to contend against CoStar, Zillow, and apparently a revitalized Realtor.com. Like, I don't know, man. That's pretty scary.
Okay, last topic here, because this should air on Wednesday of next week, right? Yes. So we're recording right now on Friday. The 26th at 10 a.m. Pacific. But this would be the show that people would listen to on that weekend going to NAR midyear, right?
That's right.
I cannot call it anything but NAR midyear, but still
that's right.
Legislative meetings. So
or whatever, right.
So the big thing there is that I've heard in the past is like these meetings have been kind of like a nothing burger because they were afraid to say anything. Now with the settlement here, they've got the big policy meeting. I think it's on Monday. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see what comes out of that and like what's NAR's kind of thing about. Are they, they want to keep this freight train going, or, I'm hearing some MLSs want to, make some edits to the agreement. Like what?
What agreement?
Well, I mean the settlement agreement.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. That's not going to happen. But
yeah,
how is somebody even thinking that? Is like where I come from. But no, I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to try to make that policy meeting. I know a lot of it will be kind of in a smoky back room ish kind of thing. Maybe at Madam's Oregon. I don't know. We'll see.
Let me ask you this. Okay. Assuming that none of what we want to see happen will actually happen. Okay.
Right.
What would you, if you were in charge of NAR right now, right? If you were like king of NAR, what would your policy meeting be about?
If there's any outliers, anybody here, right? Get them on the boat.
What do you mean outliers?
Well, that people that think that like, we could do a better thing by ourselves or you guys or whatever. It's like, hey, I mean, especially these non-NAR MLSs, right? I mean, well, I'm not even sure if they're going to be there really. They should. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that works, but no, it's just like if there's anybody that's still griping or still kind of mad, it's like, listen, man, I mean, time to get mad. Let's change things later. We have a good opportunity in front of us to get this behind us and let's go.
That's the whole meeting. I'm saying the policy meeting.
What am I going to what?
What would you want NAR's policy to be? Because you're in DC, like you're there to lobby. What would you want NAR's lobbying policy thing to be if it was up to you?
Not strictly MLS.
What do you mean?
Wait,
Yeah, not
so
strict-
I'm not.
yeah, just-
I'm not answering. I'm not understanding the question.
Okay, you know what? Let's put it this way. I think I'm super curious about a lot of what we're going to see out of the mid-year meetings. And I'm glad you'll be there, so hopefully you can report from the ground. Number one, I'm real curious to see if any of the large brokers in the 2 billion club actually attend. Right. I'm real curious to see if some of the national brands attend. Right. Because I've heard.
Well, I will say right away that this is typically the national brands don't attend. Typically, the large brokerages don't attend. It's a legislative meeting. It's when the agents go to the Hill and do whatever. So it's not that by them not showing, it's not going to be. It doesn't mean anything really.
Sure. But, you know, all the times I've been, the biggest, most packed room was the MLS policy committee.
That's MLS's.
Meeting.
That's not,
right.
You know. Yeah.
Granted, but I'm real curious what the topic will be at that committee meeting. Right? Because the last couple of years, they've just said, we're not talking about anything because lawsuit. Right? There are going to be a lot of questions, man. Like, they're going to have to make a lot of changes.
That meeting's going to be, as I would think it would be, it's NAR just wrapping up, overcoming any more objections, answering questions, dispelling rumors that have been going out, or adding some more color to things. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the one place where all the MLSs can kind of be in one room and say, "What about this? God damn it!" Right?
So they're just bitch and complain. Okay.
Well, get clarification too.
On what?
I think that there's, still some, what have I heard as far as what are some of the clarifications?
I mean, other than like implementation timeline, like what questions do you have left? Like right?
Yeah. I mean, I think they're running MLSs. There's some nuances there that are probably in there that, probably shouldn't be. I mean, maybe, maybe having to do with I still think that the timeline is ridiculous. And I still think that asking for, before you show a house to get something written on paper is kind of weird, right? Is there some wiggle room there? So, I mean, there's a little bit of something, right? I mean, I don't know. July 24th is crazy, but whatever.
And that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, all these rules changes have to be in effect by July 24th.
Not going to happen.
But that's what the settlement says. It's got preliminary approval.
Okay, are they going to pay every vendor? They should have started paying every vendor back in January, money to hire extra staff to make all the changes in the technology forms and everything and software out there to implement this. I mean, because I'm telling you, vendors are not going to give a shit. You're not going to force this. I mean, especially when a lot of times these guys want to not pay, right? It's like, they're always with their hands out on that kind. I mean, no fucking way. You want what by what? Yeah, pay me.
Yeah.
Right. Break me off a piece then, because this is gonna disrupt my business, right? And it's so much for this thing that for what? When it's a cui bono, right? Who benefits on this?
Cui bono, right?
Cui bono.
I mean, I guess there's a part of me, since you're going, we're going to have to talk about it. You know how they always throw up language onto a screen, and then the MLS policy committee will actually debate and wordsmith and all this shit, total waste of time stuff. I'm genuinely curious. Okay, if you have to have new rules by July, you better put the draft in front of that committee in May, right? Here's how the language will actually read. MLS policy handbook, whatever section this will be changed. Don't they have to do that in May?
No, I think that's in the November meetings. Typically, they bring stuff up. You have
to have new rules by July,
right? Yeah, I don't know. The bus is left, man. I mean, you're either on the bus or off the bus. So,
and I'm saying here we are. We're at the mid-year meetings. We have to have new rules by July. I haven't heard of any draft language of any new rules. Have you?
No.
So they have to present it.
But that
mid-year.
doesn't mean there isn't, right? So
right. So they have to present it at mid-year and have the MLS policy committee bless it, and have the board of directors approve it and say emergency measure, approve this language rules changes, and this will all take effect July 24th. I mean, they have to if they want the settlement.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be crazy.
Maybe I'm trying to imagine that MLS policy committee meeting goes a long time. I want to say one that I've attended last was 4 hours long.
Well,
I don't know if that's enough time.
Is there something where they can draft some just quick language that says is going to be modified at the NAR meetings, right? Just to get to the July and then something else. I don't know how that parliamentary shit is all weird to me.
They have to change the settlement agreement then, right? Like settlement agreement says July 24th, you're going to have this new rules. Like, okay, well.
They got to change it. I mean, there's no way that's going to happen. There's no way.
Even if they say the new rules are this implementation by January 1, like the rules have to be done by July 24th. So I'm just saying you have to put the draft language like in front of the policy committee so they could wordsmith the fuck out of it. And we've seen that, right? And then the lawyers are like, you can't change that word because that changed the legal meaning. And we agreed to do X, Y, Z. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It would be fun. Here's what I would like to see. Okay. At the MLS policy committee meeting, I would like to see it like, one of those like rows of tables that they typically set up. You think about it. I would like to see one row in the back just be DOJ and FTC lawyers. Just, you're in our city. We just want to see what rules you're like. We know what the settlement is. We know what we want. We know what the settlement says. We just like to listen in.
Yeah, no. Check your badge at the door.
Do you think NAR says no, you can't come in?
I don't. Well, I think
seriously, if the DOJ showed up and said we'd like to just attend and listen, you think the NAR is really going to go no?
I would say go buy a ticket. I mean, this is a members only thing. I don't know.
Anyway, this should be fun. This should be interesting. I
will try to get tidbits. Like I said before, it's like I'm usually in my hotel suite giving presentations or talking at a steakhouse or at the lobby bar.
That's right.
Whatever goes on in those three places, I will be happy to report back.
You're not selling any. I mean, I guess you could be selling Giant Steps, but like, are you going to be? Won't you have more time to be attending and doing lobby bar and?
Well, I plan on doing that meeting, right? So nobody's coming to see demos at that time anyway. So right. But no, I've got a couple clients that I'm going to be talking about there for sure, good. And so yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I always liked DC, so. All
right. So yeah, and then I guess the week episode after this one, we'll just make it the mid-year review, like what happened.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's good. Let's see, when do I get back? Yeah, that should be okay.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
If we had thought about this a little bit harder, because this is like not our job at all. But if we had thought about this, we should have found a sponsor to do this live in DC. Don't you think?
Yeah.
That would have made a lot of sense. So, hey, companies, step up. Sponsor Industry Relations Live.
It's funny because we'll end with this because I know we're running close here. Like I see, there's a lot of other podcast guys that are getting, I think, some higher ranking guests than we do, right? And I'm like,
oh yeah.
Are they afraid of us?
Of course they are.
I mean, what the hell? I mean, I was getting kind of like competitive.
You know the answer.
I know the answer, but it's like that. They're like that guy's freaking interviewing that guy. I mean, how does that fucking happen?
Here's what I'll say, Greg. I bet you can get those guests. There's no doubt in my mind that Kevin Sears would appear on your show. There's not a chance in hell Kevin Sears appearing.
Rob, listen.
I
would never cheat on you, Rob, ever.
What do you mean, Jordy? You have listing bits forever, and it's not cheat. Hey, man, get them.
It's not that.
The guests will come to your show. Ain't nobody stepping up to 60 minutes. Like that's just not.
Listen, I'm a one-man guy, okay, Rob. So
I get it. I totally understand. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I'm nothing. I'm like, hey. In fact, kudos to Kevin Sears for doing that podcast with Byron.
I didn't say anybody's name. But okay.
I just give look. I think credit. Yeah. I don't hate him or it's just credit is due. This sort of reinforces I think NAR leadership should know when y'all appear on shows like that or on Greg's show or whatever and appear human, you sound better. Having said that, I do have to address one thing since you brought it up because that show, Mr. Sears referenced an unnamed critic and said that the video that he released was not from a teleprompter. It wasn't reading from a script. It was just him speaking from his heart on one take. I'm like, cool. If that's true, that's actually worse.
Jesus Christ.
Because somebody needed to then have said, Mr.
All
Sears.
right, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us on Relations
We have
today.
to redo this take because you sound like a robot.
Really enjoy everybody to have.
I'm just saying. All right. So I just want to point that out. You're so much. Hey, Kevin, you're so much better when you're just loose and talking to somebody. So do more podcasts. Please get on Joe Rogan. Please get on, whatever. Like, it's one of the big podcasts, and then represent the voice that way. This like one-way thing and friendly audiences with like Byron, and like that's not doing a real service. Like, you're so good in person. Go on the hostile places. Go on the general podcast and do that. All right. So I'll just leave it there. Again, kudos for doing that because you're way better in that natural thing than apparently staring into camera and speaking from your heart because you sound like a robot when you do that. Let's end there. You see why no guests will come on this show? Thanks, everybody.
The murder board.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Peace.
everybody. Listen, content is everything. Two Brothers Creative makes it look easy. Right now, business owners really only have two options. The first option is hire a big firm. Now, this big firm's going to come in, make you think that they invented all the algorithms, and start charging you thousands of dollars every month. You don't want to do that. Second option is to do it yourself. Well, that means you got to learn SEO, SEM, copywriting, marketing techniques on the web. You should be really focusing on your own product. But now there's a third option. It's called Content in a Box. Give Two Brothers Creative 30 minutes a week and they'll handle everything. Plus, they'll show you how to bring it in-house later on. They'll rebuild your marketing foundation and give you tools and techniques and a new marketing playbook that'll actually produce real results and help you grow your business. Two Brothers Creative will give you the confidence and know-how to tell the SEOs and SEMs and all those other acronyms to get fucked. You're in control now. Get started today at thecontentbox.com.